Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Universe. I am Aaron St. Dennis. Find me everywhere at FF Mad Scientist. He is Jesse Moeller at JMoeller05. How's it going, Jesse?
It's going good. I'm excited to talk to these wide receivers because, oh boy, let me tell you, it gets real difficult to rank some of these guys. So it's pretty fun to see where we're going to end up on a lot of these guys, to tell you the truth.
Yep. Last year, this year, I included only who I expect to be the wide receiver one on each team. So some of them we may improvise here. Last year, I did pretty much every fantasy relevant receiver, and the show took forever because there was like 95 of them. So this year we've got 32 of them. We're just going to be picking the ones who we think are the ones, obviously. So that means you're not going to see Devonta Smith on here, T. Higgins, because they've got a one ahead of them. So it's going to cut out a significant amount of receivers here, but fuck it. We're only going to do the, not necessarily top 32, but the 32 wide receiver ones on their squad. So for all of our written content, head over to fantasyfootballuniverse.com. You can follow the rest of our content coming out. Tomorrow we're going to do tight ends on the show. Rate, review, like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. We would greatly appreciate it. We will get started here with one of the better ones, AJ Brown. I think he's probably, for me, he's going to be the last of the elite tier, but for now, he is in elite. I got to bring up my rankings because I forgot. I suspect I have him. Obviously, these are redraft half PPR. I suspect I have him at wide receiver 5 or 6. Let me confirm. It is wide receiver 6. So he, for me, I think he's the first one where I think to myself, do I want him in elite or do I want him in great? So we're going to start right off the bat with a bridge guy for me. I think I leave him as the last man in the 6-man elite tier. What do you think?
I have him at wide receiver 8, and I can make the case for a couple guys over him in that range. Like, my whole issue with AJ
great
Brown,
it is.
Yeah, like with his, like we talked about Devonta Smith already. Like, he's a problem. The rushing quarterback is a problem. We saw AJ Brown. He's been incredibly efficient over the years. He just can't get enough targets. Like, he's never going to be CeeDee Lamb getting 180 targets. So that's just the offense he's in with the skill position players they have. They also have Saquon Barkley. It's just extremely difficult, and he's an incredible wide receiver. Now, if you switched him with Lamb and did Dallas, I'd be like, yeah, put him at wide receiver 1. But if he's in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts, like he's never going to give you over that 20 points per game. So yeah, I'm right there with it, like right at the beginning of great. If you want to make the last 3 elite wide receiver, like I'm fine with it.
Nope.
Yeah, he's
nope. It took no convincing to move him down to great for me. I was kind of on board with you. So right when you said it, it was right down. Actually, I heard a fun take yesterday on a show where someone was really high on Anais Smith and says that's going to greatly impact Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. And if you believe that, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. An undrafted rookie wide receiver who's nursing a foot injury. That's going to impact AJ Brown. So I may not think he's elite. We put him in great, but Anais Smith is not factoring into this conversation. So like I said, I have him. I think you're right. I had him at 6 overall in a tier here with Garrett Wilson, Puka, Davante, Olave. That's probably safe in the second tier. I feel like at one point not too long ago, he was the easy one to put up in the elite tier, but he seems to be losing a bit of his luster. That's chronic injury issues too. Some boomer bust tendencies here. So I think he's safe to be putting at the beginning of the great tier. Yeah, and I forgot to timestamp our first one, which is going to piss me right off. So let's get into our next one. We have Amari Cooper. You want to take it away?
Well, yeah, Cooper's interesting. He had basically his career here last year where he was far better than anyone expected. Because going into last year, people were not on Amari Cooper. They're like, oh, this guy's overrated. He was kind of just okay in Dallas. Goes to Cleveland. He kind of figures it out with Joe Flacco. The interesting aspect is he doesn't have Flacco this year. So I think you can make the case. I have him at wide receiver 23. I think he's right in that range for me. Like he's a middling wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. Like I think he's
26 for me. So yeah, I agree.
I think we kind of view him similarly. So I say you could put him in the good tier. Like I would be fine having him there. Where you get a guy who can give you spike weeks, like be a wide receiver on occasion. Like we've seen the home and away splits for him, but I'm fine with it. Amari Cooper. So he's not truly like one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. So I think he's a good player in a good situation. I'm fine with good.
Yeah, I'm fine with that as well. I feel like he no longer has, well, between him and the age and that offense, I feel like he no longer has the upside to be in the great tier. Like,
Mhm.
if I compare, I'm not high on AJ Brown. I haven't been since his rookie year when he disappointed me in injuries in the playoffs. I don't hold a grudge or anything, but I just find like if you this isn't even close. He deserves to be in a different tier
Yes.
here. Not an AJ Brown guy, but it's not even particularly close.
Yeah.
Someone who will be close, I have ranked above. Next up, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown. This one's got to go
He's a
elite,
movie.
right?
Yeah, elite. He went on the 20 points per game threshold last year. Like he took another step forward. We saw Matt Harmon's work come out this year, and he's improving each year against man coverage. He's getting better and better. Like he's becoming that truly superstar wide receiver. And people will say, "Oh, it's not all green." And I'm like, dude, that's such a rare thing to have that freaking charting. By the way, stop looking at that, people. It's a horrible way for wide receiver evaluation. His situation is great. PPR, like slot guys, they benefit the most in the system. And Amon-Ra, it's like that guy, and he's the true target man in that offense, and it's a good offense. So yeah, I'm all aboard him on the league.
Yeah, for me, I think I have him at 5, 4, 4, 5. 5, but he's
Yeah, I'm
been
fine.
in. Oh, because okay, I'm thinking dynasty and redraft Tyreek's in there, so he's at 5. But for me, he seems to be interchangeable. I have Lamb and Hill easily as the top 2,
Mhm.
and then him, Chase, and Jefferson. More specifically, him and Jefferson seem to flip flop back and forth on me here, depending on what day it is. So I think he's probably the last option here on my elite tier, but it's still a pretty damn good tier full of guys that are awesome.
Yes, it's
Next
very good.
up, we've got Brandon Aiyuk. I have him as the one here. You could probably argue it's Debo. Who knows if either of them start the season on this roster? But for now, I put Aiyuk. I have Aiyuk as my wide receiver 10. Debo was my 16, so that's why I went with Aiyuk. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so Debo actually outscored Aiyuk, and he's outscored Aiyuk basically every year on a points per game basis. Yeah, I like the comment from Matt. Pretty much the opposite of what Debo, and like there could not be two more different players than Debo and Aiyuk or Debo and Ricky Pearsall. Like Debo is just a unicorn wide receiver, and this is the thing where people call people to Debo. He's actually a good wide receiver. That's the thing that makes him special as his position. But whatever. We'll talk about Aiyuk. Aiyuk's a really good wide receiver. Take what I said about AJ Brown and make it worse because he has severe target competition. Like if you look at his stats, he's never gotten that many targets. So like, I love Brandon Aiyuk. I think in a situation where he's a wide receiver all by himself, he could be an elite guy. But like he's probably the back end of great based on talent. But if you want to put him in good tier, I'm fine with that. But if we're talking about talent, like he'd be higher. So it's kind of like situation dependent. Like he's the bridge between good and great for me. He is my wide receiver. Where is he? 7, 8. I have him at wide receiver 20. That's gonna piss people off, but that's where I have him ranked because I have Debo higher. Like I expect Debo. So if one of those guys moves on, I'll push them up. But like it's so difficult for either one of these guys to be a truly like high end wide receiver 1. Like you see their points per game, all that stuff. He was only 15 points per game last year. Like that's back end wide receiver 2 territory. Like I don't know, man. I'm always lower on these guys because year to year it's just difficult for them. I'm curious, where do you have Aiyuk?
I have him at 10. For me, he would have been the end of the great tier, but I think based on a consensus between the two of us, he's at the beginning of the good tier because you sound like you're quite a bit lower on him. So are we comfortable with him at the end of at the start of the good tier instead of the end of the great?
Yeah, that'd be fine with me.
Okay. 1 sec. Sorry, I'm multitasking here. Next up, we've got Malik Nabers. I don't think it was a stretch, even though he's never played a game. I don't think it's a stretch here to assume that he's the Giants' #1 target. I mean, Darren Waller's gone, so right off the bat, that clears up a ton of room. That was a joke. I was being sarcastic. I have him at 22, so he's a rookie, shitty offense here. For me, he's going to go probably right here between Aiyuk and Amari Cooper. Where do you have him?
Yeah, that's right where I have him. I actually right next to Terry McLaurin.
Yes.
And there could not be another like a better perfect analogy for a career than what Terry McLaurin's gone through. Malik Nabers is not the same player, but like he's in that same situation. It's god awful. Now he can exceed it, he can do that, but I don't want to put him up there because Daniel Jones sucks. Like I hate to break his Giants fans, it's not good. He's gonna limit like how many passes he's going to see. Now, I mean, obviously, they've never had a wide receiver with 800 yards in a season. Right? He's gonna get that. Malik Nabers will get 800 yards, but I think this year's a floor play. So I think I'm putting him in good. in the right situation, like if he went to the Cardinals, I would push him like right around where AJ Brown is. But he's with the Giants, like that's just life how it goes.
Yeah, like for me, it's not the worry about talent. It's not a worry about target competition. It's a worry about, as you said, Daniel Jones sucks. So he's good. I think eventually he has the potential to be great. I'm just not sure how much this offense handicaps him. But I guess you could say the same thing about Davante Adams, because that offense sucks probably just as much. So next up, we will have someone who doesn't suck. I had him currently. He's in my rankings at wide receiver 1. That is CeeDee Lamb. He's definitely the beginning of the elite tier for me. I think when everything is said and done, it's going to be Tyreek as my 1, but I'm not going to argue either way. I have him as the 1 right now. I think he'll be my 2. Where do you have CeeDee Lamb?
I have him at 1, and like we talked about this with Jeremy a little while ago. The whole difference between him and Hill is the age thing with Hill, where he's gonna start dealing with injuries once he's older. Yeah, target competition. And I got a CeeDee Lamb shirt on right now. So yeah, he's wide receiver 1, but like top 2 wide receiver. I don't really care. Whoever you want, it's fine, man. He's incredible. Like the ceiling is through the roof, like Michael Jordan said. It's just going above it. So yeah, we want Hill at wide receiver 1 and Lamb right there too. So yeah, either one's fine.
All right, not much more to say there. That one's pretty straightforward. So next up, we have Saints Chris Olave. I have Olave at 13. For me, Olave is going to end up being the back end of the great tier. I'm sure the debate will be whether he's in the great tier or the good tier. Where do you have Olave?
I'm at 15, but I view him very similarly. Now, we've been hearing a lot how they're changing the scheme, the new OC, what the Saints are doing. They're pushing the ball downfield more. That should help him out because Olave is a downfield boundary wide receiver. So, like, he has a wide range of outcomes, and I think his upside is significantly higher than most people are giving him credit for right now because of how bad the Derek Carr thing is. But, like, 2 years ago, Derek Carr was throwing it over 15 yards, like, per target to Davante Adams. He was doing that with Adams, and Adams was having a monster season. So, I could totally see that happening with Olave. It's Derek Carr. I still don't trust the Saints entirely, so that's why I'm a little bit lower. Like, I'm not going to put him above AJ Brown or anything like that, but yeah, I think he's in that tier.
There's no competition for targets. Juwan Johnson's going to miss some time, and I know you're saying who gives a shit about Juwan Johnson, but aside from an aging Alvin Kamara, that's his most significant competition for targets. Like Rashid Shaheed, I love Shaheed, but I always thought he was more of a gadgety player. I didn't think he was a high volume kind of guy. We will move on. Next up, we have. Did I skip someone? Oh, I did. I skipped someone on my thing. We will go on to Courtland Sutton. This one is polarizing. What do you got here for Sutton?
Man, I'm pretty. I really don't want a wide receiver for the Broncos. I got to find out where Sutton's ranked because I don't even know where he is. I got to bump up. He's wide receiver 44 for me, and he needs to move up. So I need to fix those rankings a little bit. So I would put him in like average to bad. I just don't know what the ceiling is in a Bo Nix offense with Sean. Like we've seen how much that sucked last year. So the difference between Sutton and Judy was touchdowns. That's entirely why Sutton was better. If you take away the touchdowns, they were basically the same player. So like I have a hard time seeing him being like a wide receiver 2. I'd say like he's like a wide receiver 3 this year. If you want to go average or bad, like I'm all aboard it. Where do you have him?
40. I don't know. I'm not convinced this offense. More importantly for me, he's never healthy. Yeah. He misses a handful of games every year. I think we're going to grade this, like I said, not overall, but on a curve of based on how they are relative to the other wide receiver ones. And so far, he's easily the one I want least. So I think in the grand scheme of things, he's probably closer to average, and he's probably more of a flex or wide receiver 3 option for fantasy. But comparing him relative to the other ones, I'm putting him in bad because, well, he's bad.
I mean, he only got 90 targets, and he hasn't had 1,000 yards since his 2019 season. It's been a long time since he's been different between wide receiver. So if we're viewing on this spectrum, yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right. Next up, we have the Raiders, Davante Adams. Thoughts here?
I love Adams. My whole issues with Nabers is I haven't seen him do what Adams can do. I think, and Adams is still one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, so it's really high to put him below great for me. I think I have Adams at wide receiver 9. I have Adams at 9, one spot below.
Me too.
So he's
I have him at 9.
The ceiling, like the target, there's no real competition. I get it, Brock Bowers and all that stuff, but like it's Adams' world until like he starts to diminish. Yeah. That's how good he is. So yeah, like I'm putting him above Olave. It wouldn't shock me if Adams has another top 5 season. I don't think it's likely, but it's in the realm of outcomes with him because we saw last year he was just fed targets again. He's gonna get fed targets again. Like this, he's just one of the best wide receivers the last like decade. Like he's that guy.
No, I agree. I have him exactly at 9. Here's where I have him, probably the same as you. There's more players for me between AJ and him, but for now, I have him at 9. That's exactly where he belongs. Next up, we've got DeAndre Hopkins. Where do you have D-Hop? I think I'm in. I got him in the 20s, maybe 30s.
I have him at 38.
37.
Yeah. I prefer him to Calvin Ridley. I think he's just been better than Calvin Ridley, and he was better last year. Now, you can make the case like Ridley was out of, like he was in the wrong position, playing the wrong scheme that didn't fit him. So maybe the Ridley bounces back. But Hopkins is still a target earner. He's a monster. Like, compared to him, Courtland Sutton, I much prefer DeAndre Hopkins to Courtland Sutton. Their points per game might not be different because Will Levis is just, we don't know what kind of quarterback he is. So yeah, I'm fine putting him at average. Like, it's really hard to trust the Titans offense and what they're doing. We've seen since DeAndre Hopkins has been there, like he just hasn't been really that good of a wide receiver for fantasy. So he's another guy that's been awesome over the course of his career. Will likely be a Hall of Famer, but I'm just not. I really don't want to like pay up for Hopkins this year.
Yeah, I'm leaving him in average. Like I said, I have him at 37. He's better than Courtland Sutton. This offense sucks probably more than Denver's offense. I'm not really a big fan. Next up, I have Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas, as the one here on the Patriots. Some could argue it's Polk, whoever. I have him at, let me look here. It's going to be way down. This will be our lowest so far, I'm sure. Where do you have him while I kind of look? Do you know?
I have a wide receiver 49. So, like, I'm okay with Douglas in that range. I'm curious how low you are on him.
I don't know. I'm trying to look. I might be catastrophically low here because I don't have.
So he's buried in rankings. Like if you don't adjust rankings, he's absolutely buried. I had to significantly move him up, but I'll take the case.
I do. I have him way down. I have him in the low 40s as well. I'm going to be moving him up here, but I still think, I'm moving him up to 50. That's as high as I'm willing to move him up. I'm not moving him up above 50. He is someone I want him. I want him less than Courtland Sutton, I think. I don't know about you.
Yeah, like if you want to make the case for Sutton over him, I'm fine. He's in that tier. The one thing about it is he's a professional, like solid NFL slot wide receiver. He's going to be good in that role and be a guy that's like good for an NFL offense. The ceiling is very difficult. Like you need Drake May to be an upgrade over what Jacoby Brissett is. Jacoby Brissett can support like wide receivers. We've seen it in the past. It's more of a floor play than anything else. So like I think he could be like a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 for you in a season. It's really hard for him to jump higher than that. As much as I think he's a good NFL player, we'll see the change in New England. I don't know. Maybe they completely flip the script. But yeah, like him and Sutton, it's fine. Like you could just talk to either one of those guys. I would not really care.
Next up, Diontae Johnson. I have him as wide receiver 26 overall. For me, he is in this tier of the good here where I think I have him above Cooper. He's in this kind of unexciting tier here of guys where I will take them on my team as probably a wide receiver 2, but they definitely are not nearly as sexy names as the ones in the tier above. Where do you have Diontae Johnson?
I don't know. Wide receiver 21, one spot below Brandon Aiyuk. It's basically the exact opposite situation as Aiyuk. The target competition is as minimal as it can get, and I know people like the situation players there. It's just we need to see Bryce Young improve for Diontae Johnson to like be the wide receiver number 7, which he was a couple years ago, the Big Ben. I think it's entirely possible. I think there's upside for him. Like it wouldn't shock me to see him jump into that great tier, like going into next year, where he gets all the targets, he's efficient, it works out for him because he's just a very good NFL wide receiver. I think that's the thing we're sleeping on. So I'm fine right in that range. Like I love me Diontae. Like I'll always chase these target earners, these high profile target earners, and that's something Diontae Johnson's all he got. So like I get it, situation seems bad, but it can significantly improve.
Next up, the Bears, DJ Moore. Where do you have DJ? I have him at 15. 15. Yeah, I am at 15. So for me, he is, I believe, right here. He's between Adams, but above Olave. Actually, no, I have Olave 2 spots higher. Where do you have him?
Yeah, I'm a wide receiver 18. My issue is there is a lot of competition coming into that offense. So I don't know how DJ Moore. Now you can make the case it's a better quarterback, which it very much is.
Yeah, but it's a rookie quarterback.
Justin Fields is not good, but that's the thing with rookie quarterbacks, and we talk about this like with rookie quarterbacks, they struggle immensely to support fantasy wide receivers because they are learning. Like the CJ Stroud stuff is such an outlier. Don't go chasing that from CJ Stroud. If you're looking at that from Caleb Williams, and I love Caleb Williams, but we kind of got to pump the brakes because the situation and their defense is actually pretty good. Like it could be a little bit different than what we saw. So I think he's wide receiver 18. Like, would it shock me if he's wide receiver 12? My issue is I love Rome Odunze, and I think he's stepping in and he's going to impact both him and Keenan Allen right out of the gate. So like that's my thing with like why I'm a little bit lower. If they didn't have Rome Odunze, I would have DJ more like closer to AJ Brown and those guys. But I think Odunze is really, really good.
I know we've had some bad quarterbacks and there's been some generational rookie quarterbacks, but very rarely am I ever willing to say, well, he got a quarterback upgrade with a rookie, because I don't care. Peyton Manning, one of the greatest all time, was not a rookie or was not an upgrade in his rookie season because the rookie quarterbacks, they're going to suck. So it's going to be long term, it's an upgrade at quarterback. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be an upgrade. I guess Justin Fields kind of sucked, but still, I don't know. And I think it's probably a wash. I'm not willing to say it's a huge upgrade for a rookie. So that's just.
I think worst case, he's similarly as bad as the quarterbacks they had. Like that's the floor. There is theoretical upside attached to Caleb Williams if he is better than that. And so that's why I kind of like DJ. I like all those passing options, but I'm not going to put him above like the AJ Browns and those of the world because, I mean. That's not really how that works with running backs unless they're significant. And Swift's like, so what Swift would do is he's going to take it down from the slot guys, aka Keenan Allen, or the guys that are running the short underneath the like below the line scrimmage stuff. Because Swift's really not pushing downfield. So if you make the case that Swift is pushing downfield, I was like, SC, what are we talking about here, man? Yeah, like I love Rumbadudes. I think he's the best.
Moving.
So yeah, we'll just move on.
Moving on. DK Metcalf. I have DK at 19. He feels perennial. Like every year, he is just undervalued. I get it. He's not probably the elite guy he was in the 1 year where he was the top, 3 or 5. I have him below DJ Moore by a couple of spots. I think I'm comfortable with him. I'm not sure with Aiyuk here. I have Aiyuk above him. So for me, he is number 2 in this tier of good. Number 2. Excuse me. Yeah. What do you got?
We were talking about with Olave being a downfield. Like that's what Metcalf's going to do in this offense. And I think Ryan, I don't know why I keep calling him Ben Grubb. Ryan Grubb, the new offensive coordinator, is going to open that up for Metcalf. So I think he's going to look closer to what we've seen previously. I have him one spot above Olave, but it's in that same tier. Like I'm not going to be like, oh, he's the top 10 wide receiver. Have him wide receiver 13. Like I think he's very good bet this year to improve to be what he was because the situation and schemes really hasn't fit him very well. And Geno Smith is like we talk about Caleb Williams. Geno Smith's a good NFL quarterback. Like that's the thing. So if they can keep him upright, like I think Metcalf's a big beneficiary this year of that offense. But yeah, it's a little bit bold for me to like have no wide receiver 13. So I fully admit it.
Drake London, a guy who I think I'm the low man on always. I still have him at 13. I have him 1 ahead of Olave. I think I'm more comfortable with him 1 behind Olave. I'm not that high on him. I get it. Kirk Cousins is going to be there, but I don't know. Where do you have him? I put him in the great tier, but I feel gross about it.
Yeah, and I'll talk about what SC said about like I think both of them succeed. Like JSN gets to play a little bit more downfield. His role is completely changing. Let's see what the Washington was doing. Kind of see what JSN is going to do. Like in that Jalen McMillan role, he's going to be a stretch downfield, like and do stuff. Open up the intermediate underneath. So I think both those guys succeed. I think Lockett's the odd man out. That's a whole other discussion. So for Drake London, I'm all aboard it because Kirk Cousins has been a nonstop supporter of high-end fantasy wide receivers. Like we've seen it throughout the years. As long as he's healthy, that's the entire risk. And I know people are like, what's the difference between Garrett Wilson and Drake London? And I'm like, dude, it's the same fucking thing to me. So the only thing is Kyle Pitts is better than whatever the wide receiver 2 is in New York. That's the only difference, really. I think Cousins was on a career pace last year. He was out of the charts. He's doing everything you need. So personally, I have him at wide receiver 10 just because I'm baking some of that injury risk in. If you told me there was no injury risk and he was healthy, I'd probably bump him up to like where AJ Brown is. But I love Drake London. I think he's one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. It's situation upgrade. Like I'm all aboard it. So I know we talked about it in the offseason. Like I've been all aboard it. So yeah, fire it up, baby.
In that rather professional transition, we'll move to Garrett Wilson, who's next. Garrett Wilson for me is 7. I have him at the top of this tier right here, at the top of the great tier. He could be elite. He hasn't had it with the quarterback play. I know everyone says Aaron Rodgers is going to be the best quarterback he's ever played with, and that could be entirely possible. I'm not all that convinced Aaron Rodgers isn't done, but that's just me. So while I do think this is probably the potential to be a career year for Wilson, I am not nearly as high as everyone else. I'm kind of tempering my expectations a bit. I think he'll be great. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not sure if I know he's QB proof, but I don't know.
I mean, we've seen how that QB proof has worked out, right? It's been
Yeah.
like wide receiver 33 last year.
Yeah, he's been QB proof to the point where he's been fantasy relevant, but we're talking the guys he's with here. These aren't fantasy relevant. Like we're talking the elite of the elite, and I'm not sure Rodgers has anything left. What do you think?
If you look at Rodgers the last couple of years, besides last year the injury, he's not the same guy he was previously. Like he's kind of regressed a little bit. So I have actually more confidence in Kirk Cousins supporting multiple assets than I do Aaron Rodgers, just because like what we saw last time out of Aaron Rodgers his last year in Green Bay, like he was not that good. And maybe that's a little bit situation based. It is what it is. But like, dude, he's 40, like he's old. He's not young. Like we talk about this. So Aaron Rodgers is just a weirdo. Like I kind of feel bad for the Jets and what their expectations are putting on him. Like that is what it is. That's the whole other thing. I just think Garrett Wilson is really high floor play with the ceiling attached to Aaron Rodgers. It's entirely possible. I just don't see why he would be an elite like compared to a Drake London because it's like it's basically the same bet you're making on both of those guys. Is the quarterback play improving situation? Both are solid target earners. Like and we've seen this. Like he's had the first guy in his career in 2 seasons to have over 300 targets. Like that's Garrett Wilson. That's who he's been. So he should see a ton of targets. I would not shock me to see him be a top 5 wide receiver this year. I just think that's the floor is a little bit lower as well.
Next up, we have a guy who I've always been a believer is much better looking as a player in real life than he is for fantasy. I'm not necessarily sure for George Pickens that his value is accurate in fantasy. Mm-hmm. I know all those fancy one-handed catches, but I don't get bonus points for one-handed catches. For me, he's just good. I get there's no competition here, really. He should have a lot of targets, but I think Pittsburgh's going to find a way. I don't know if they're just going to go run heavy. I don't know what they're going to do here. If maybe this is why I'm higher on Roman Wilson. I don't necessarily know if he's a high volume guy. He's a throw up the one-handed catch, make a couple of spectacular catches, but how many double-digit target games does he have? It can't be many. He seems to me like just a flashy guy, and it's I don't know. This doesn't scream to me high volume, or high reception numbers, high yardage, maybe some high TDs, but I don't know. I have him in the good tier. What do you think?
Yeah, I have Pickens at what I have about like wide receiver 26. I think I have. Yeah, I have right next to Amari Cooper. Yeah, I think he's really good. He's very much a Brian Thomas Jr. That's type of player is. He's just a more realized, better version of that right now. What he is in his NFL career. Like with Russell Wilson, I actually like it because Russell Wilson's always been a downfield guy. This is where Pickens succeeded, but Pickens over exceeded what he was doing last year. He only had barely over 100 targets last year. So the thing is, how many targets can he get in the offense with Russell Wilson and those guys? I'm like Pickens is really the only pass catcher I want in that offense. Like I'm terrified of Roman Wilson because if he's the slot guy, like he's only playing in 3 wide receiver sets. And in that offense, like, dude, they're not going to play a lot of those. They are going to ground and pound. We've seen with Arthur Smith and what they do. So I don't see a ceiling where he's ever a difference maker, but I think Pickens could be a good like boom bust wide receiver 2 for your teams. So I'm fine with him in that range. I would prefer the other 2 guys like Diontae Johnson and Malik Nabers above him, but it's a similar bet to Nabers. I just think Nabers is a better player is all. So, but yeah, it's the same type of bet where you're like, the offense sucks. Can they support it? Like, I don't know, man. We'll see with Russell Wilson and the Justin Fields. He's going to run it 1 million times.
Next up, Jamar Chase. This will be a quick one. I have him at 3. I'm sure you have him somewhere between 2 and 5.
Yeah, I have him at 4. Yeah, he's awesome. 4? It's weird how his roles actually changed. He's been getting more screens and more like lower A-dot targets because when he came into the league, he was really high downfield. Joe Burrow was airing it out. He had like 18 yards of receptions rookie year. Super efficient. Since then, he's kind of come down. The offense has changed, so it gives him a better chance to stack up like more receptions because of what he's playing. So we gotta stop sleeping on him and like Justin Jefferson. I think they're just quite possibly generational wide receivers. Like I don't care. He's elite. Just throw him up there.
Next, Jayden Reed. I have him at 26, wide receiver 26. So I've got him somewhere in this group. I think I have him right after DK-ish here somewhere. I don't know. Where do you got him?
I have him a wide receiver 40, and that I struggle with that. Yeah, I'm lower on him. I'll happily admit it. So I think we could probably put him in average if you want to make a case for him to be good. My whole issue is when the entire offense has been healthy, Christian Watson has been the target earner on that offense every time. So, like, I need Jayden Reed to take a jump this year for me to be on board with him. Like, I think he's a little bit overvalued in Dynasty, but I know he does a lot of things good. Like, he could be a good player in that offense. It's one of the better offenses in the NFL. So, like, you need someone to step forward. So, I think you make the bet on Jayden Reed or you make the bet on Watson. People like Wicks, but how the hell is Wicks going to have the upside? So, I think you decide who you want to bet on the offense and you make the bet because they can grow with Jordan Love. So, if you want to make the bet on him there, like, I'm fine with it.
Next up, we have Justin Jefferson, who's obviously going in the elite tier. Depending on the day, he could be my 3, he could be my 4, he could be my 5. He is currently my 4. So, any arguments here? You have him higher, lower?
I have him at 3, but I don't really care between the two. We're splitting hairs. So he's the best wide receiver we've seen. Like, not basically ever start his career. Like, he's that guy. So yeah, I'm all aboard the Justin Jefferson trade. I'm not worried about JJ McCarthy. Like, he put up 20 points per game without Kirk Cousins last year. The guy's a stud. Super high floor. Like, this year is going to be a super high floor. Like, 18 points per game minimum. Like, that's where we're gonna go. And if he hits the ceiling, it's 24.
Next, we have a surprising rookie that I did not expect to see on this list, but it looks like Keon Coleman is the number 1 in Buffalo. That's kind of scary. I'm sure he's not all that high up in my rankings.
No, not for me either.
44 for me. I have him. I don't think I have him in the bad tier. Maybe I do. I think I have him in the bad tier.
Yeah, that's fine. I have him actually right next to Sutton in my rankings, but there's theoretical a ton of upside in Josh Allen offense. Like, comparing Josh Allen to Will Levis, like, they're very similar play styles, except Josh Allen is just a much, much, much better quarterback. That's the whole thing. So I would personally rather bet on Keon Coleman than DeAndre Hopkins because he could theoretically be the wide receiver one of that offense second half of the year. I think it's Dalton Kincaid, to tell you the truth, but I think there's upside for Keon Coleman. I'm worried about his profile, man. He scares the crap out of me in that offense play next. So I have him at 43, I think, I have a wide receiver 43, just because I just don't think he's that good. That's my entire issue with Keon Coleman. But, like, I've been wrong before. I could be wrong again on this one.
He seems like one of those players where he has a 20% chance of being the greatest receiver of all time and an 80% chance of being in the XFL next year. So
he's our new N'Keal Harry. That's what he is. That's why Jacos are massive.
Next up, we have another LSU rookie. We have Brian Thomas Jr. He is easily the lowest one we've ranked for me so far. I have him in the low 50s. 52 actually. So for me, he is, I think, having said that, I want him more than any of the other players in this bad tier, but I think it's just based on upside, but not all that fond of him in this Jacksonville offense. I mean, he could be good, but I'm not really targeting him. What do you got here?
Yeah, like with when I was talking about George Pickens, that's the type of player he's going to be. I just like Trevor Lawrence better than what George Pickens is doing. So and Brian Thomas is actually a really good prospect. Like, I think JJ Zach recently had him 4th, really close to Romo Dunes, actually. I think because the thing with Brian Thomas is he's just a freak athlete. He's a targeter downfield. Like, it's the Chris Olave role, like, that they're going to be as a downfield big guy. I actually like Brian Thomas a lot. So, like, getting the 110 rookie drafts, I think, was a smash. I preferred him over Xavier Worthy. Like, I think the chance is higher than Keon Coleman that he's actually a really good wide receiver. But there's serious risk to him as well, too, because he's very boom bust the type of player he's going to be. So it wouldn't shock me if he's wide receiver like 45 on points per game basis. I have him at wide receiver like 39, I think. So, like, there's risk, but, like, there's upside in where he's going. I think he's a smash pick where he's going in drafts. I'll put it that way.
Next up, we have who I have as the number 1 in KC, Hollywood Brown. Having said that, he's still pretty low for me. I have him at 37. So for me, I think he's probably the top of the average tier for me. You know what? I could probably make a case that he's the last one in the good tier. What do you think?
Yeah, I've always been a Hollywood fan. The guy's a targeter. It's health with him. It's always freaking health because he's a small boy, and these dudes get injured a lot. Like, he is a small receiver. He's kind of the reason why, like, Xavier Worthy, we talk about him. Dude, that's his doppelganger, except he's just better downfield than Xavier Worthy. So where he's at his NFL career, like, I think he's going to outperform Xavier Worthy. Like, I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 in Kansas City. Would not surprise me to see him outscore some of these guys in this range. We're talking about Diontae, those guys, because it's a really good offense, really good quarterback. And they're going to kind of, like, revert to what they've been. So I like Hollywood Brown. I have him a wide receiver 32. Yeah, I have him right next to Cooper Kupp and Keenan Allen. Like, that's the type of players he is. So I'm all aboard right there with that.
Next up, the rookie, Marvin Harrison Jr. I have him at 11 or 12. I have him at 11. I'm going to put him myself in this tier right around here. I don't care how good he is as a rookie. It's redraft. I'm not putting a rookie in the elite tier ever in redraft. I'm just not doing it. Give me the 6 or 7 guys above him who I'm 100% sure are good. And then I'll start taking a chance on the guy who I think is good. So for me, he's fallen, he's the gap between the guys of Wilson, Brown, and Davante, who I know are good who are really good for sure. And then the guys where I kind of want Olave, London more. So he's kind of a bridge in this great tier for me at 11. What do you think?
Yeah, we're getting him finally being like the alpha in an offense, along with Trey McBride. Those are the two pieces I want in that offense. And Kyler Murray is a good NFL quarterback. He's finally out of the just god-awful Cliff Kingsbury offense, which was just a defunct NFL offense. So we should see with him a year removed from the ACL for Kyler Murray, should be another year on that. And we've seen him support guys like DeAndre Hopkins in the past. So I could see Marvin Harrison Jr. being a wide receiver one, no problem this year. I have a wide receiver 13. It's just there's a little bit of just because he's a rookie, we haven't seen it. That's the only risk with him. But like that's basically telling you he's going to be a wide receiver one. So yeah, I'm all aboard him in the offense. There's minimal target competition. He should get all the targets he can handle. This is what we want. The difference between him and Nabers is he has a good NFL quarterback, and I like that. So I'm gonna chase that.
Next up, Pittman, Michael Pittman. I have him at 17. He falls for me on the borderline, either towards the end of this great tier or the beginning of good. I think I have him above DJ Moore just because there's not really any competition there. Where do you have him?
Yeah, I have one spot. I have at 19, one spot below DJ Moore. So we're in lockstep on these two guys. Yeah, it's Anthony Richardson, and the dude's gonna run a ton. Like it's not gonna be the Gardner Minshew throwing him a ton. Like I think he's more than likely going to see a decrease in targets and receptions and all of that. Now, can he still be good? Yeah, I think he could be a solid PPR magnet wide receiver 2 for you. He was last year feels like the ceiling because Gardner Minshew was chucking it more than I think Anthony Richardson is going to do. So I think that's my kind of issue with the Colts offense. I think they're all really good. Like I like the pieces of the offense, but I have a hard time seeing him being a top 5 wide receiver just with Anthony Richardson sporting him because that's asking a lot for him, Anthony Richardson.
Mike Evans. I've got him at 14 for me. It's funny because I have him ranked higher than Pittman, but I feel like I want him lower. For me, I don't know if I want the top of the good tier. I think I want the top of the good tier. I don't think he's great, but it's tough for me. For this spot, right after Olave, from like Drake London down to DK Metcalf is just one big clusterfuck for me in the rankings. And it's like it's a spot in the draft where if I need a receiver, I'm taking whoever the last man left in the tier is because I think they're all pretty similar. For me, it's really a difference of like the situation. London and Pittman have no competition. DJ Moore, Godwin, Aiyuk have tons of competition. So does DK. So maybe that's why I ended up with London and Pittman at the top of this and Olave. It's just 3 guys with no competition and then 4 guys with lots of competition. So I went with these guys first. These guys are also the younger. So maybe I'm just an ageist.
That could be true. I have him at wide receiver 12. Like I think he's very good. We saw what he did last year. He's another of those downfield wide receivers. Like, and some of these guys like Mike Evans have been prolific in that role because guess what? He's a downfield wide receiver. He's a freaking giant who catches touchdowns. He's been efficient. So yeah, we saw last year him kind of regress to what he was big because the year before they struggled in the offense with the Brady and just all the issues. Going through with Baker Mayfield, getting that like the offense increase. I do worry like moving on from Canales, they're asking Baker Mayfield to do more. So I'm not sure if I might be a little bit high on Mike Evans based on that, but like the dude's like a borderline Hall of Fame talent. Like he's just been an exceptional NFL wide receiver. It's not going to shock me to see him have 1,200 yards and 10 plus touchdowns again this year. Like that's just who Mike Evans is. And his numbers actually increased according to reception perception. So it shows that he's still got it. So until he shows me he doesn't have it for redraft, he's always going to be like top 15 for me.
Now, one that I'm probably going to get the most pushback on in general. I have Nico as the number 1 here in Houston. He's my highest ranked. I have him at 18. You could argue it's Tank Dell. I don't think you can argue that it's Diggs. I'm sure someone will. For me, Nico falls at the beginning of the good tier, I think. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm sure someone's going to make the case for Tank Dell, but I have Dell all the way down in the early 30s, and I have Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, actually, I have as the 2. I have him at 27. But all 3 of these guys are not necessarily guys that I'm targeting. Whether it be Nico, Diggs, or Dell, I think they're all going significantly higher than they can produce because there's a lot of mouths to feed here. But I took Nico as the 1 overall.
Yeah, we need to see CJ Stroud, like, the passing volume increase. In year 2, I expect that to happen. I think Nico's one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. So this is why, like, I have him at wide receiver 11. I know it's a bold as hell take, but, like, I want the guys in that offense because – oh, no. I can't see you either. Am I frozen still? Can you hear me? I guess.
No, you're good now.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want Nico Collins. Like, I want to bet on extremely talented players. We saw Nico last year. He was efficient through the roof in his role. And I think what Stephon Diggs does is he allows him to be downfield more and earn more of those targets of what we want. He's the best wide receiver they have. I think Tank Dell's really good, but, like, Diggs is going to be the slot guy underneath. Like, Nico's going to be pushing downfield, so is Tank Dell. I just think Nico's a better version of Tank Dell, and he's good in everything he does in that offense. So it's not going to surprise me if Nico's a top 12 wide receiver. Like, I just want him. And I know it's bold of me to say that, but I don't care, dude. Like, I want CJ Stroud weapons. So that's probably my hottest take of them.
Next up, I went Puka over Cooper Kupp. I think at this point, it's not necessarily a hot take. Cooper Kupp had some injury concerns. For me, Puka is not in the elite tier just yet. I do have him as the number 1 in this great tier. He is my number 7 overall. I actually have him ranked lower than AJ Brown. I think I'm going to switch that. I like this order here of Puka, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown. But how do you have it?
Yep, I'm a wide receiver 6, 1 spot above Garrett Wilson, who's 1 spot above AJ Brown. So he's right there. He was incredible, and people are like, "Yeah, what if he does a different situation?" I'm like, "Dude, he's not. So why are we fading this guy who's the best rookie wide receiver season we've seen of all time?" He does. They know how to scheme up what he does really well, and that's the intermediate digs and things of that nature. He's going to run those nonstop in this offense. Teams cannot stop it last year because he's the best in the NFL at it. So, like, Puka Nacua, I'm all in. I think he deserves to be in that top 4 dynasty. Like, he should be there. And I know that might be a hot take, but I really don't care. Like, I want Puka everywhere I can get. And he seems to be cheaper than those truly elite guys, even though he was just truly, like, everything you could ask for from a wide receiver. Like, if he had round 1, he'd be wide receiver 1 in dynasty. Like, I think that significantly. So, yeah, I'm all aboard with wide receiver 6 for there.
I think the only reason I don't have him in the elite is I'm worried a little bit that with a healthy Cooper Kupp, it's going to take away a little bit from him. Yeah. So I'm going to, like I said, I still have him at 6, but I'm going to be a little bit more cautious. Next up, we have Quentin Johnston. That's who I have as the number 1 in the Chargers. Spicy. I don't think any of them are good. I think he has the most potential to be an alpha, like the X type. I don't think I have any of these guys ranked inside the top 50. I'm certainly not going Ladd McConkey. I don't like him. Oh, I have McConkey ranked the highest, but that's not how I'm going to leave it. I have McConkey at 45. I have 49 for Quentin Johnson. But I have Quentin Johnson, but having said that, he's still the worst one on my board here.
Yeah, let's just say whoever the Chargers wide receiver 1 is, we could just go with that. Because I have Johnson at wide receiver
Josh
6.
Palmer, whatever.
Josh Palmer, worst
Palmer either way.
I have Palmer above Quentin Johnson. I'm so not even like Johnson was just god awful. So I know there's like a few people that still stand him, but yeah, I have Ladd McConkey wide receiver 47. I'll say we have Johnson there. Like I significantly worry about the Chargers offense supporting people because there was a quote that came out yesterday. Freaking their offensive coordinator Greg Roman talking about brick walls, which is what he was talking about 2013 when he was talking about NFL offense. The dude is a zebra. He can't change his stripes. So good luck. But like I know there's upside if you get the wide receiver 1 in the offense. Like, I understand it. I just don't know how high the upside is with Ladd McConkey or Quentin Johnson. That's my whole issue. But Herbert's amazing. Like, if they let him cook on that offense, like, he could have a wide receiver 1, like a top 12 wide receiver. But I'm just worried for those guys. And, yeah, if you don't like Ladd McConkey or you don't like Quentin Johnson, you're probably not going to want any of the Chargers pass catchers, like, to tell you the truth. But personally, I think McConkey's just a better version of Quentin Johnson. So, like, I'll happily take it over it.
I don't care who it is. Either way, Chargers receiver, number 1 receiver, is the bottom guy on this list for me. Next, we got Terry McLaurin, who I have at 31. I have him, and I believe after Pickens and Diontae, I think I have him right here between Cooper and Hollywood. I like him better than Hollywood. I like him less than Cooper, I believe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how I have it. How do you have it?
Yeah, I have him a little bit above those guys. I have a wide receiver 22 because I know he's a rookie quarterback, but similar to Caleb Williams, I think it's an upgrade over what we've seen because I'm Like I know you're a Sam Howell guy, but like, dude, Sam Howell was not efficient at all. And also, like, we saw Jacoby Brissett when he stepped in. Like, Terry McLaurin actually had life, and he was good. I think McLaurin's a good NFL wide receiver, and he could give you upside. So but if you want to put him in the good tier, like, that's totally fine with me. I don't mind it. Right there, like, that's that range. I would just put him closer to like the DKs and Pickens of those guys, but it doesn't matter. He's fine in that range. I think there's of the guys in the range of where he's going, like, he has theoretically more upside than a lot of those guys because he can do it. Just I worry about a rookie quarterback supporting him as well.
Tyreek Hill. The only question is he number 1 or 2 for you? I have him at 2 right now, but he could easily be the 1. I think you said you have him at 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like the age and injury concerns are really the only differentiating factor and also, well, not the only. I would say Jalen Waddle is so far superior to anything Dallas has. Like, Waddle's a target earner, and he was really good last year. Waddle's going underrated, so people should be drafting Waddle. But yeah, like, even with Waddle, Hill was on pace to set the NFL record, like receptions, yards, all of that stuff. So he's just special, man. Like, that, we gotta stop talking. Like, I don't care how old he is. I want this guy on my team because he's just one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and he breaks defenses. Like, that's what you want.
I like Dak better than I like Tua as well. So that's the other difference for me.
The crazy thing is Tua led the NFL in passing yards, right? Like, it's nuts. Like, that offense is set up for just fantasy points. So you could make the case that Jonnu Smith's going to do some underneath stuff. I don't really care. Like, I love Tyreek Hill. I think he's special.
Last but not least, we have Zay Flowers. I have Zay at 30 overall. For me, Zay falls probably right around here. I think I have him above Nabers. I don't know. He's in this range here. You could argue for me he could go all the way back. I want him above Hollywood, but not above Diontae. So for me, he's in this group of 3 here. I'll probably put him here after Terry. What are your thoughts?
I think he's good. I do worry because, like, with Mark Andrews on the field, it's like the different kind of role he plays. So we'll see. I'm a wide receiver 37. Like, I think he could significantly beat that, but like, I just worry, like, if he's going to be running big boy routes and doing all of that in the NFL offense with the Ravens in year 2, the Talk Monkey, maybe they expand on it with Lamar. We'll see, but I think Mark Andrews is still the wide receiver 1 in that offense. So until that changes, it's going to be so hard for Lamar Jackson to support multiple fantasy options, like high profile guys. But Zay Flowers is good at wide receiver 37. We should be betting on him. I'm fine with that.
All right. That concludes that. Any final takeaways here from this list that you noticed? I mean, the elite are elite. That's why they're there. If there's a handful of guys here where I think this should have its own tier almost, because once I get to about Marvin Harrison, where it's the cutoff, where it's the kind of elite guys and the guys who are probably closer to good. So for me, I think this tier almost should have ended at Adams, and then these 4 or 5 should have gone down to the top of this tier, and then probably this from here on should have gone down to this tier. So yeah, I think we kind of almost should have split and then split, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I'd say for me, the only difference is like that second tier would end at Drake London, and then you would bump down. But like, yeah, I'm with you. Like, you could shrink these tiers a little bit to like give you a little more micro look at it. But yeah, like, I think that's fine. The good guys, some of those guys could jump up. Some of those guys are going to fall down. That's kind of how it goes.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning into the Fantasy Football Universe and our wide receiver tier list, where we said we were going to cut it down to a half hour and still went an hour anyways, because that's what we do around here. Check out all of our written content over at Fantasy Football Universe, where we're not nearly as long fucking winded. Check back tomorrow, where we're going to wrap up this tier list series with the tight ends. So I'm sure the tight end one will not go an hour. God help us if it does. Thank you all for tuning in. Please rate, review, like, subscribe, comment, all that fun jazz, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Take care, everyone.